Motherless Brooklyn is written, directed, produced by Edward Norton, and it also stars Edward Norton, so he's got 4 different things going on in this movie. Motherless Brooklyn takes place in 1957 in Brooklyn, New York, where Lionel Esrog, played by Edward Norton, a private investigator with Tourette syndrome, has to investigate the death of his mentor, Frank Minna, played by Bruce Willis. Apparently this was a passion project for Edward Norton. He's been trying forever to get this thing off the ground. For the longest time, when I checked IMDb, at least since 2014, I knew about this movie. I knew that this was something he was trying to get off the ground for a while. Didn't know he was trying to get it off the ground for 20 years, so this is his passion project, and despite not having read the book that the movie is based on, I think Edward Norton really wanted to make this his own thing. He has directed before, I don't think he's written before, but we all know how talented of an actor and filmmaker Edward Norton is. And there is a choice that he makes with this movie, and that is the book takes place in contemporary times, or when it was released in 1999, so it takes place in 1999. Edward Norton decided with this movie that the dialogue and the plot itself required a move to the 1950s to create a neo-film noir. And I gotta say, the production design for this movie is really, really good. Edward Norton does a really good job capturing the 1950s vibe, what it felt like to be in Brooklyn in 1957. Obviously, that comes with the set design, the costume design. There were a couple of costumes where I was like, I feel like you're wearing stuff people would wear today, especially with Edward Norton's character. There's like a sweater he was wearing. I was like, you don't look like you're in 1957 right now, but the rest of the characters and the rest of the sets and the rest of the costumes, I think, are grand. There's no denying how great this movie is in that regard. And this movie features an ensemble cast. I've already mentioned Edward Norton. It's got Gugu Mbatha-Raw, Bruce Willis, Willem Dafoe, Alec Baldwin, Bobby Cannavale. Everybody in the movie does really good. I think Edward Norton does a really good job in this movie, especially portraying somebody with Tourette syndrome. I don't think it ever comes off as funny. Sure, he's got some funny lines when he has to act as if he has Tourette syndrome in the movie, but I never think it's offensive or anything like that. I thought he captured it beautifully. I thought he did a really good job. I mean, he's such a talented actor anyway. He's probably top 10, maybe top 5 favorite actors for me. Edward Norton is just, he's so selective about his roles, and I have seen critics say that maybe he shouldn't have starred in this if he directed it and wrote it. I think he was just too enamored in the movie, where it was his passion project and he wanted to do everything. Which that kind of shows. Some of the other things with this movie, particularly the script, kind of take a backseat. You can tell he's doing a little bit too much with this movie. There are times, though, where this script just feels like there could have been things that could have been cut. I don't know if this was exactly everything that was in the script, but Edward Norton needs to know what to cut, because the middle of this movie is a huge slog. I think the beginning is very good, and the third act is very good, but the middle, the second act, is just a slog. Like, there's this scene in a jazz club, and I'm like, why are we here right now? Like, this is slowing the movie down so much. I'm like, get back to the criminal investigation. Luckily, it gets back to all that. It finds its footing again, but there's just so... I feel like there's certain scenes in here, like that jazz club scene, that could just be cut. But at the same time, you really can't, because everything is so necessary to be in the movie for this to actually happen, in order to propel the plot forward. So it's like, you really can't cut anything, and this movie clocks in at 2 hours and 24 minutes. It is long, and a lot of that has to do with the pacing in the second act. Wish we could have sped things up a little bit, wish some scenes were cut, maybe sped up some scenes a little bit, maybe be a little bit convenient. I can't believe I'm actually saying that, because conveniences are one of my issues in movies, but in that second act, I think it would have worked better if there were some conveniences in that second act. This movie definitely touches upon social commentary with politics, social themes, racial themes, class, but I don't think the movie hits it on the nose as well as it thinks it does. There are times where it beats around the bush with some of that stuff, and it never really fully explains anything to that regard in full detail. You get only hints of what it is. You're only breaking the surface as to what this film's themes actually are. I don't think this movie is horrible by any means. It's definitely not Edward Norton's best movie. I wouldn't consider this his comeback. I thought Birdman was his comeback, but I mean, obviously we all know how selective Edward Norton is. I love him in American History X. That's one of my favorite performances of all time. Fight Club, he's really good. I feel like Edward Norton later in his career like this just isn't as good as Edward Norton early in his career, like Fight Club, American History X, Primal Fear, stuff like that, you know, The Illusionist, The Italian Job. Even though this was his passion project, I feel like he thought that this was the best thing that he did, but yet it's really not. There's quite a few issues with this movie. It's better than some of his previous few movies, because where he's selective with his movies, I feel like he hasn't been so selective lately. This is definitely one of his better ones in recent memory. I'm gonna give Motherless Brooklyn a B-. Guys, what did you think of Motherless Brooklyn? Leave me a comment in the comment section below as to what you thought of the movie. I will leave all my links to my social media accounts in the description below, through my link to my website. All those links will be found on that website. You guys are the best. Thank you for watching. My name is Alex Madden, and I'll see you at the movies somewhere.